see a lot more greening on both sides of the street as well as the center. We're going to be adding center medians, and those are going to be helping us with the water quality itself. I mean, so you're definitely going to see a disruption on the street because we are adding a mainline storm drain right through the middle of it. I mean, so, but it's going to be solving a flooding problem that has been persistent in that area for many, many years.
I thank you for that description. That's what I wanted to kind of see what were the outcomes. Too bad it's not starting any sooner than 2023. Is there any reason why we have to wait till 2023 to start the project? I'm sure there's tons of things you have to do, but you know.
I was going to say design is going to be at least 12, 13 months. I mean, this being 1.5 miles, I mean, there's going to be a lot of coordination with, and right now I'm foreseeing with utilities. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have already identified power lines that might have to be moved just because of the BMPs. So it's going to be a lengthy design. I mean,
Right. Very exciting. I always advocate for any storm drains or anything that will reduce the amount of water we accumulate during rain here, especially in that area. Here in the valley, we get a lot of flooding. So good. I'm happy to support this project very much. Thank you, Alfredo, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis?
No questions for me.
Thank you, Mike. Mm-hmm. Commissioner DeCloso.
Thank you, President Good. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Magallanes. And I have a question. I don't know if Mr. Tam is on the line. I couldn't let him get away without answering a few questions, even though he's hiding from our screen right now.
Needs to show his face.
But it's a question for you, Mr. Wing Tam. But is this, just for my clarification, is this the same project that came before the board last year on the Lancashire Boulevard Green Street project, or is this another Green Street project along Lancashire?
This is Wing Tam here with Ellis Sanitation, and I appreciate the discussion here. But yes, this is another project.
Oh no!
Lancashire is sorry about that. Lancashire is a long stretch. I mean, it's a pretty long stretch. So we only tackle a small portion of that stretch. So this will actually help with the rest of the Lancashire Street.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember there was some Green Street projects last year that you and I, that you briefed me on along with Lancashire, and I was just curious whether or not this was a continuation of it, an add-on, or it's, the same project, but just doing more work around that same part of the boulevard. And can you talk about, are these two meant to complement each other? Is this part of a much larger plan for along Lancashire Boulevard? And I'm not familiar with this area to know how close in proximity these two projects are.
Correct. They are to complement each other because the project we're working on, the current one that you approved last year, is actually construction's almost done. And so it's actually in the lower portion of Lancashire. And we're putting in a whole bunch of rain gardens and bioswales along Lancashire Boulevard, as well as a number of dry wells. So this new project is actually in the upper reaches of Lancashire, so that we will have if you look at it, it will have a continuous after this particular project's done. We'll have continuous Green Street all the way up further up. So basically, it is a different part of Lancashire, and will definitely complement each other.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. I was trying to remember. It's like I knew we had worked. I know. Mr. Tam here had worked on another green space project along Lancashire. So I'm thank you for clarifying that. I don't think I have any more specific questions on this piece. Do you think there's a lot of opportunities here, and appreciate Vice President Garcia for asking some of the outreach questions. I think some of the work here that was outlined during the kind of like stakeholder and community outreach plan at the time this was drafted looks like think I saw some stuff around door-to-door canvassing. So that's something that I hope you all work with to create a backup plan. And since during COVID-19, we definitely wouldn't want to see any of our contractors or consultants doing any in-person canvassing engagement like that. And can you just maybe just a few sentences or so briefly explain kind of your plan to transition about what that looks like during COVID, since you can't do that canvassing that's kind of outlined here.
No, that's correct. I mean, round one we submitted back in December 2019. So when we were writing this, we didn't even were thinking COVID or anything like that. So, but we as part of these, I mean, this past couple of months or this almost a year, we've learned now about virtual meetings. We have done and other projects. So again, we that's why I'm saying I'm relying heavily on the council offices to provide me the community groups, which again, my staff will be contacting and setting up evening meetings or basically whenever they want to see us. And again, one of the things that my staff has been working on is basically PowerPoint presentations. I mean, we're not going to be able to be there with boards or anything like that. So there'll be most of the presentation would be on PowerPoints, and that's one of the things that we are planning to do for not just this project, but for others.
Okay. And just kind of be the last note from me on this. And I reiterate that for all these projects that are coming before us for the SCW work that you're all leading, is for this outreach work. I will just put another emphasis kind of on the language access piece. So if you guys can just, when you work with the council offices, to make sure that as you do the outreach, we do it at least in more than one language. For for areas in language, and it might be that some of the additional languages that you might be in Spanish for whatever materials necessary as you engage with constituents. Over 50% of our residents speak a language other than English at home, so just want to make sure that in this 5-year project timeline that you have, that we emphasize the need to do more on that front, since you do have a very good budget here for outreach and education. If you guys can just make sure to flesh that out with your consultant or contractor.
Will do.
And I think that's it for me. Thank you, President Good, and thank you both.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. I don't have any questions, Alfredo or Wing. Thank y'all. Do I have a motion to approve this project?
So moved.
This agreement, excuse me.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, I got a motion from Commissioner Colosa, seconded by Vice President Garcia. Any objections or concerns? Sorry.
He seconded the motion.
He approves.
Commissioners took a little too long.
He loves this project.
Yes.
Sorry about that, y'all. If a delivery truck comes up, there's nothing I can do. So got a motion from Commissioner Colosa, seconded by Vice President Garcia. No objections from Commissioner or President Pro Tem Davis. Hearing no objections, is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Just didn't want to jump ahead of you.
Right.
So hearing no objections, the item is adopted and approved forthwith. Alfredo, thank you very much. That brings us to transfer agreement, item number 3, which is our next transfer agreement, Safe Clean Water Regional Transfer Agreement, MacArthur Lake Rehabilitation Project, recommending the board, 1, approve and forward this report with its transmittals to the mayor and city council to authorize the president or 2 members of the board and the director of the Bureau of Sanitation or designee to approve the MacArthur Lake Rehabilitation Project Regional Transfer Agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles County Flood District for the transfer of Safe Clean Water Regional Program funds. 2, authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation or his designee to accept SCW regional program funds to conduct all negotiations, to provide additional information, and to execute and submit all documents, including but not limited to applications agreements, amendments, and addendas subject to the approval of the city attorney as to form, which may be necessary to secure funding with respect to the implementation of the project. And 3, recommend electronic signature and execution of the transfer agreement without the use of wet signatures. Upon electronic signature and execution by the board, request the city clerk to attest and certify the electronic copy of the agreement. The city clerk and the board are each to retain a copy of the signed transfer agreement. Alfredo, are you also briefing us on this project? Great, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Again, the MacArthur Rehab Project. This is one of our.
Hey, you went mute, Alfredo.
Sorry about that. The MacArthur Rehab Project is one of our larger projects for round one. It's actually a multi-partner project because it does involve a lot of different entities, city departments, and outside interest. For example, Department of Rec and Parks is on board on this team. Council Office, CD1, Streets LA, Metro, LA DWP. So this is going to be a very, like I said, a multi-partner project. Again, it's a collaborative effort among all departments because of all of these departments that I did mention have planned or ongoing projects around MacArthur that we are going to have to plan logistics for. Currently, we are defining the bounds of the design, incorporating everybody input. And right now, I'm just going to be briefing you on the Measure W funded aspects of this project because I know for Rec and Parks, they have other actions that were going to be done at the park concurrently with this project. They're applying for Prop 68 grants and so forth. Metro is also doing some work outside of the park that we're going to have to coordinate. Streets LA is also at the same time as this project doing work around the street, intersections, remodeling, and so forth. So, like I said, right now, my job is to be assembling the team. We do have a consultant already on board, but we're trying to define the pre-design to make sure everybody's on board on what we're going to be doing. Basically, this project will be bring stormwater flow to supplement the lake water that will be used for park irrigation, again, to assist in meeting the total maximum daily loads for the Bayona Creek watershed, in particular bacteria and metals. MacArthur, as you know, is in CD1, the Pico Union area. It's definitely in a disadvantaged community. We'll be capturing approximately 216 acres and capturing approximately 216 acres and 13.1 acre feet annually that would of storm flow. Total project cost is approximately 20 million. Year one funding for this one is 2.1 million being received by the city. Again, the project will provide necessary improvements to the lake in preparations for storage. And again, the other elements of the park, we're still in the discussions with our recreation and parks to see how that's going to be incorporated. And actually, engagement or outreach for this project did start back in 2018 already. So we do have a lot of community input. An outreach consulting has already been brought on board. I mean, we have brought in Mujeres de la Tierra, led by Irma Munoz. Again, addressing Commissioner Calosas, addressing the community around the lake. We predominantly know it's Spanish speaking, so we're going to be using her services to help us engage and gather more information for this project. But basically, again, this is going to be an 18 to 20 month project starting in the summer of 2023, ending in spring of 2025. And because this is such a large project design, it will be taking, we're estimating between 14 to 16 months.
Thank you, Alfredo. Questions, colleagues? Start with Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. Alfredo, this is exciting. I'm excited about what's coming. I was preview to this project with through a map of all the things that are coming and all the puzzles that are coming together to that area. And this is such a big instrumental part of the entire revitalization that's happening to that piece of to that area of Pico Union. So I'm so happy to hear it. I do think we'll follow up with you on a more specific briefing on this project. I just want to hear more about it in detail, but excited to support it as well. Um, and that's really it. I just wanted to provide my support on this project. I'm excited to have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis?
Okay, this is the MacArthur Lake Rehabilitation Project. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you told me it was $20 million, is it?
20, approximately $20 million, just the stormwater elements.
Will there be any portions therein that amount of money for us to outreach to business inclusion and other opportunities once you commence with the project?
There will be. I mean, again, one of the requirements, like Sheila was saying, the Measure W requires us to do what you were saying, business inclusion to small business, and it's a city project that most likely will be led by Bureau of Engineering, and the city requirements will have to be satisfied.
Okay, and so what? So as a result of our completing this project, the quality of water will be much better there in terms of eradicating our problem with metals and bacteria. Is that pretty accurate?
This project will assist in lowering the concentrations reaching Bayona Creek. I mean, it would be it will not solve the problem, but I mean the additional projects that are coming down the line will. But it's a big help reducing the load back into Bayona Creek, where this water eventually leads.
Okay, and so this project, in terms of the geographic scope of it, is diverse. Is that why it's costing us so much money? But why is it so much more expensive on this leg of the overall project?
The answer is yes. I mean, as you know, MacArthur is surrounded by Wilshire Boulevard, Alvarado. I mean, we have a tunnel going underneath the MacArthur Lake, so the engineering is going to be challenging.
I see.
So we have a lot of elements that we're going to have to overcome. So it's a little on the expensive side. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I mean, my concern, we're dealing with Wilshire Boulevard. I mean, that's going to be a traffic nightmare that we're going to have to deal with if we do anything.
Is this like our Central Park here in Los Angeles, the whole location of MacArthur Park? It's kind of one of the largest urban parks in our footprint, probably, is it? MacArthur?
I was going to say it is. I mean, along with the Echo Park Lake, I mean, that's another major park that we have, Lincoln. And yeah, so MacArthur's, I'm going to say MacArthur's a little bit more challenging just because of the traffic pattern. I mean, we got metro buses going down Wilshire, Alvarado. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. The construction is going to be a challenge, and we're hoping we can mitigate as much as we can.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you so much for the update. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem.
Just one addition, it's also really dense, that area, with the population. So that's it's very much needed, but it's very dense, that area. Sorry, President.
Thank you, Commissioner Closa. I was sparing y'all some dog barking there, so.
Thank you, President Good. Thank you, Mr. Magallanes. I agree with Vice President Garcia. You know, I think it's exciting to see this project. It's one that I think could use, more investment regionally, and from the city. A lot of people, a lot of constituents interact with the park in so many different ways, from the businesses surrounding the park to the residents to a lot of the organizations, and I think even the Mexican consulate, I believe, is around this area. So there's just a ton of traffic, right? And I think it could really use some of these investments that we're going to make that will naturally, I think, spark out of, what's meant to improve water quality, right, will also hopefully improve other parts in the surrounding areas of MacArthur Park. I'm just curious, has MacArthur Park ever had a rehabilitation project, or when was kind of a last major investment made, if you know by chance?
I, what I've heard from Recon Parks, the last one was when the actual metro went underneath the lake. They had to actually drain the lake and line it, so there was not going to be any leakage into their tunnel. I think so. That's probably quite some time. I'm going to say maybe 20 years back. I think that was the last time the lake itself was physically touched.
Got it. Okay. Just curious. Yeah, I don't have any other additional comments for you, and thank you for addressing the kind of the language access piece for the outreach and working with, you know, appropriate consultants or contractors that you have on your list to kind of give that culturally competent outreach that we need for this area. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Closa. Alfredo, just one quick question, and you hit this, but I just wanted to clarify again. So, the project will essentially create an opportunity for inflow to supplement the water in MacArthur Lake, and that inflow will be recycled water. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, so we're going to actually use the lake as storage. I mean, we're still going to have some tanks and yet to be determined where they're going to be at. But we need storage. That the water will be then used at the park. I mean, for irrigation purposes. So that's one of the major things. I mean, we're going to take the water away from Bayona Creek, store it, reuse it at the park for potable reuse. And again, we're still in discussions with Rec and Parks. I mean, if it's going to be subsurface irrigation or sprinkler irrigation. I mean, because it requires different treatments.
Right, and when you say potable reuse, we're only talking at the irrigation. I can't remember what the tiers are, but that's like tier to use it for irrigation. What's the tier?
Well, I mean, the Department of Health, basically, we're going to have to treat it almost to drinking water standards. I mean, if we're going to be using it on the sprinklers, I mean, their concern is if people get too close and ingest it, I mean, we don't want to get them sick. So it's basically, we're going to have a UV system on site to be treating it, and then UV basically kills everything. I mean, you're going to be actually close to drinking it. I mean, so.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much, Alfredo. All right. Do I have I'll motion to move this one forward. Do I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Any objections or concerns? Commissioner Closer or President Pro Tem Davis?
None.
None for me either.
All right. Hearing no objections or concerns, this item is adopted and approved forthwith. Thank you very much, Alfredo. And that brings us now to our last SCW transfer agreement, and that is item number 4. Speaking of Echo Park Lake, Safe Clean Water Regional Transfer Agreement, Echo Park Lake Operation and Maintenance Project. Recommending the board, 1, approve and forward this report and with its transmittals to the mayor and city council to authorize the president or 2 members of the board and the director of the Bureau of Sanitation or designee to approve the Echo Park Lake Operation and Maintenance Project Regional Transfer Agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the LA County Flood Control District for the transfer of Safe Clean Water Regional Program funds. 2, authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation or his designee to accept Southwest or Safe Clean Water Regional Program funds, conduct all negotiations, provide additional information, and execute and submit all documents, including but not limited to applications, agreements, amendments, and addenda, subject to the approval of the city attorney as to form, which may be necessary to secure funding with respect to the implementation of the project. And 3, recommend electronic signature and execution of the transfer agreement without use of wet signature. Upon electronic Signature and execution by the board. Request the city clerk to attest and certify the electronic copy of the agreement. The city clerk and the board are each to retain a copy of the signed transfer agreement. This is in Council District 13, reflective of the very groundbreaking element of Measure W, which is allowing for funds to be used for operations and maintenance. So with that, Commissioner Closer, you want to kick us off? Or actually, we need a presentation. Sorry. Wing, are you giving this presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Wing Tam from LA Sanitation. And you're absolutely right, President Good. This is one of the first, if not the first, we actually are receiving operation and maintenance money to provide that service to our existing project that we implemented. So this is kind of almost groundbreaking because we never have any O&M money for a lot of our projects, and this happens to be one of them. And so this Echo Park Lake, just give you an understanding why it's so critical, is that this project was completed in 2013, so it's almost 17 years ago. 7 years ago, that was completed, and it was funded from Pop O. Right. So we've been getting by in terms of maintaining this lake on the minimum level in order to at least maintain that lake. And just give you the component of what this is critical is that we install a number of structures. We completely rehabilitated the Echo Park Lake. We spent over $48 million rehabilitating this lake. So this particular park is one of the larger park, as Commissioner David mentioned, but the lake itself is probably one of the larger ones also. It's about 13 acres of lake water, and it's about 16-acre park site. And so we put in a number of structures like recirculation, aeration. We clean out trash, algae. We actually drained the lake and basically took out a lot of sediments. And then we ended up putting in a lot of wetlands system, a lot of aeration, new pumps and diversion structures to basically clean up a lot of that water. And so now the water is basically also being used as a recreation. There's paddle boats and other sorts in that area. As I mentioned, we've been kind of getting by and maintaining that lake. With this infusion money, about $400,000 from the Measure W funding, now we could basically do a lot more to make sure this lake is up to par in term for recreation use, and also more importantly, to make sure the water quality is drastically improved. This actual lake actually has its own TMDL, meaning that we have to maintain certain levels from algae to metals and all that in the lake itself. So this money will actually help us maintain that water quality element for this lake. So I appreciate, just kind of brief you on that, but definitely money that we could use right now for the particular this lake.
Thank you, Mr. Tam. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
President Pro Tem Davis, you want to kick us off? Any questions? You went mute, Mike. Sorry.
Sorry about that. No questions for me on this item.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You were smiling. I thought maybe you said something funny. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Colosa.
Thank you, President Good. You almost had me do the briefing for Mr. Tam here. I really appreciate this project as well. I really, think that's a great investment for Measure W to allow for you all to tap into these O&M resources. And so, I'm excited to see what these improvements will look like. Can you just kind of walk through the timeline for this project? How many years you would have this funding for? And if you can also just kind of briefly share? I don't know if you have the exact figures, but maybe ballpark, like how much of the O&M cost has LA Sand been taking on the last 7 years? I'm just curious what that
Okay.
looks like.
Okay, let me answer the first question. Right now, this particular O&M funding is only for 1 year because the way the Measure W worked out is that we can only get money for 1 year. But we are planning to submit another application to get multi-year funding for this O&M, and typically the multi-year funding, depending on how much is available for the Measure W, we're next round we're trying to target for at least 5 years cycle because that's how long Measure W could allow funding for. It's only a 5 year cycle. And so hopefully, once we submit the next application for next cycle, then we would be able to continue to have O&M money for this particular lake. Um, and then the other question regarding how much we in sanitation been spending cost wise for maintaining this lake. We have a combination of in-house forces, which is sanitation people actually maintaining some of the pumps, some of the structures. But then we also hire contractors to actually physically go into the lake and basically like any other wetlands or any natural treatment system, you have to actually physically go into the lake and take out a lot of the um, non-native type of planting. There's lake weeds and other things that we are that this project requires. So those are the vendors that we actually have go into the lake, and they take out a ton of let's say plants that's not needed there. As well, one of the things that kind of from this project, we encountered what we call apple snails in this lake, and they're a apple snail is a very invasive type of species that will actually eat up just about anything they see in the lake, especially all the plants. So we have to physically go in and remove the larva and the apple snail itself by hand. And so that's one of the challenges we've been having with this particular project. We only would be able to do some of that with the amount of funding we have. We have to prioritize what we're going to do. And the other thing that we also do is that we actually go into the lake and put in what we call every natural ecosystem because of the way the lake and the plants and the animal, the wildlife interacts. There's always algae growing from the lake. This particular lake have what they call blue green algae. Is an algae that's very toxic, meaning that if you let it go in terms of getting to a point where you could not see the lake, it will actually gives off certain gas that will actually be very toxic to human as well to any wildlife around there. So we've been trying to prioritize the more important function of that, meaning trying to maintain that blue green algae and the apple snails. So what's causing us the cost so far for us to have this minimum amount of work is somewhere around $200,000 a year so far. And so by getting $400,000, we are able to be ahead of the game. All the items that we have to do, like one of the things we noticed that our aeration system is not working properly. But we've been kind of putting that off because we are unable, don't have enough funding to maintain that. So we have to go and now be able to maintain some of that so that we put more air into the lake water themselves that will actually provide more aeration such a way that it will also prevent these algae from growing, as well as lake weed. We've been, putting in dyes and other measures, basically to camouflage the lake, so that when the sun hits it, it doesn't penetrate and allow more, basically the nutrient to grow this algae. So by this infusion money, there's a number of things we are able to do. We need to also be able to, because this project has been in place 7 years ago. We noticed that at the forebay area, they're starting to have sediment build up, and so we need to go in and start taking out some of that sediment. And we've been putting that off and not doing that because I think every 5 years you have to kind of go to the lake and do that. In 7 years already, and so now with this extra money, we are able to go in and do some of that work so that we are maintain the quality of this lake. So those are some things we'll be doing with this money.
I appreciate the detailed explanation for the work that you've been doing, and appreciate LA San for fronting those O&M costs. And just one last question for me, was the 1 year funding through this program, was that something that LA San intentionally asked for, or did the steering committee only want to approve one, but LA San asked for a 5 year funding structure?
As far as I know, it's a combination different factor from the steering committee for and to what Alisan asked and what the counties that is available to give, because this is one of the first year that they are allowing O&M money, and so it's one of those wait and see attitude. Well, how well this works,
Okay.
and how much money they have available, because they were actually unsure how much money available for a lot of this work, because most of the work from the county is actually focusing on more capital project, and so there's they're not having a lot of project going in with O&M money. So that's why it was only 1 year, kind of almost a trial, and then we will continue and ask for and get more money as this goes along. So this is only one of the project in terms of getting that money. We are planning to ask for more for other type of project we have implemented throughout the city for O&M money. So that's why it's very important that at least get the first round, first year, and then proceed to get more as funding becomes available.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation, and that makes sense. I'm glad we got in this first round, even though most of the funding has been going towards the capital improvements. I don't have any other further questions. President Good, thank you, Mr. Tam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Calosa. Vice President Garcia?
Thank you, President Good. And thank you to my colleague Calosa that she asked very good questions. But I thank you, Wing, for teaching me what an apple snail is and blue-green algae. I actually looked it up while we were in the meeting. And you're right, they do cause a lot of harm. So that's crazy that we haven't been able to find a system that would take care of it and you have to handle it by hand. But yes, I thank you. I'm sure this information will be useful one day. Thank you for that. Other than that, I completely support this project, and I'm glad we take care of that lake that so many folks in the city utilize as not just a rec, but there's so many functions for that lake. So thank you that we're continue to keep it up and we continue to take care of it. And that's all for me, President Good.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Ditto. I just love that Measure W addressed O&M, however attenuated it is. And my understanding also is that given that this is this is a property tax essentially amendment, the numbers are going to be dynamic each year, and so other than the 5 regional plan, people are going to have to keep going back. So that's understandable. Someone else's dog.
Sorry, bro, that's mine.
No problem, Wayne. All right, do I have a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Closa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Any concerns or questions, Vice President Garcia?
None from me. Thank you.
All right, hearing none, this item is adopted forthwith. Thank you very much, Wayne. Thank you, Sheila Bryce. Thank you, Mr. Magallanes, and y'all have great weekends. Thank you so much for the series over the last couple of meetings.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. All right, colleagues, that brings us to item number 5. Um, Dan Myers is with us. Good afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon.
As
So,
is Paul. Real quick, Dan, let me read this. Let me read the item into the record.
thank you.
um, Colleagues, item number 5 is a contract amendment and budget increase. Los Angeles Conservation Corps recommending the board one authorize. If you're not, can everybody mute? If you don't mind, please. There we go. Not really.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul. All right, recommending the board one, authorize the Office of Community Beautification to execute a contract amendment with Los Angeles Conservation Corps to increase the ceiling amount of the contract by an amount of $730,000. 2, authorize the Bureau of Sanitation to piggyback on an existing contract that the Office of Community Beautification administers with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps. And 3, authorize the president or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract after approval as to form has been obtained by the city attorney. This was originally on the agenda on Friday, December 18th, 2020. We continued it to today. Please note, colleagues, folks from the departments, and members of the community, that if this item is approved, it will be subject to the mayor's cost containment process. So with that, Dan Myers is here along with Paul Roch. Miguel Zermano, I see, just came and joined us with his new COVID haircut. Dan, why don't you kick it off for us, sir?
Well, certainly. Thank you, Commissioner. Dan Myers with LA Sanitation and Environment. This contract amendment has a couple of different elements. I'm going to touch on a number of them, and Miguel will be able to close it out. Critical to the success of the Recycler program and the cities, and in meeting the city's diversion goals, is a robust and meaningful outreach and education initiative. It's crucial that customers understanding clearly of what can and should be recycled, and that process is made easy and becomes a routine to them. To complement the direct customer engagement and education that's performed by our Recycler service providers, the city seeks to use a grassroots recycling education campaign throughout the city. LA San will be responsible for active canvassing in each of the city's council districts, identifying 135 densely populated areas and high traffic commercial properties for direct contact with customers and dissemination of educational material. LACC will also be scheduling how-to presentations with identified target audiences, which are a combination of constituent service providers, business membership organizations, community groups, and high traffic retail businesses. LACC will also be assisting LASAN in implementing a number of grants. Specifically, grants focus on food rescue at our produce markets and other high organic producing businesses, and to support local composting, including assistance to our farmers markets. So as a quick overview of the functions that we're looking for LACC to support from LASAN. I'll turn it over to Miguel to address the additional component.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, commissioners. Yes, part of this amendment is to include a cost associated with about $80,000 for the support of LACC to help which they already helped. We worked on the Harbor Community Garden down in Council District 15, down in San Pedro. We've been for the past. Uh, we started that project back in January through July. We did a about a mile worth construction of irrigation system. It's a community garden that has been there for about 30 years now, where the local community can come and use a small plot where they can grow their own food, vegetables and fruits. For the past 30, 29 years, that community's been the city's been subsidizing some of the water consumption. In order for the city to reduce our costs in terms of the water consumption, we work with the community garden to build the irrigation system. And after the irrigation system was built, we transfer all costs associated with water consumption to them. So between January and July of this year, we built that irrigation system where we had needed additional help, and due to the topography of the land, it's kind of slopy. We looking at some areas is between 15 to 20% slope, so we needed additional labor. Our equipment was not able to help us do trenching, so we needed mostly labor. LACC provided that service, which they did an excellent job. They help us through the months of February through July. They came in, help with the trenching, installation of the irrigation system, and also go fill the trenching and compact of the soil. So all that work has already been completed. So the cost associated with that service, it's about $77,500.
Thank you, Mr. Germano. Thank you, Mr. Myers. Appreciate that. And Miguel, the board approved the MOU on the agreement, or on that division of labor and responsibility for the community gardens a little while ago, correct?
That is correct. That is correct, President Good. We went back to the board. The board approved that agreement between the city and the committee, and that's in that particular MOU. That's where they will be taking responsibility on paying the water consumption.
Right. And we took responsibility for the infrastructure, which ended up costing extra because of the sloping, et cetera.
That is correct.
Got it. Okay. All right, colleagues. Let's open that up. President Pro Tem Davis, any questions or comments?
When do we anticipate the timing of this project? What is the timing of it? Can you hear me?
So, yes, Dan Myers, LA Sanitation. The timing for the recycler portion is, well, I'm going to say that it's up in the air right now. It is as soon as possible. We know in terms of the city's process that we still have a number of steps to get through before this amendment gets approved. When it comes to some of the grassroots effort, outreach and education components, we actually we can be in the planning stages for that right now, but we really need the COVID pandemic to kind of subside a bit. Let some of the stay at home orders be removed, so we can comfortably interact with our constituents. So I don't mean to evade the question, but It's really to be determined right now.
You-
We'll be ready to go as soon as as soon as the pandemic, releases some of its grips it has on us.
Are there any alternatives that have been proposed and accepted given the unique challenge of COVID 19? In other words, can we get an opportunity to maybe through social media meet some of the criteria that we would have normally met through outreach and or using cable TV and other means that might suffice given COVID-19? Because this is, I guess, we're going on the second year of COVID-19, I think, or almost that way, right?
Yes, sir. We're just about to, I think, to close the doors on the first year and run right into the second. That's a great question, Commissioner, and a great suggestion. We know there is often benefits from being able to actually talk to somebody face to face. We understand the challenges of that during COVID, and this scope of work was designed pre-COVID. So we do have the opportunity, I think, definitely in the coming months, especially as this project continues through its approval process, to analyze some other options. For example, on the Recycler website right now, we worked with our Recycler service providers, and they established essentially a Recycler university, where they tackled a number of different recycling related questions as it relates to say multifamily complexes, businesses, restaurants, and they actually held a conference and then posted the videos online. So I think it is a good opportunity to go back and see if there's more of that can be done. Also integrate it closer with our social media. So I think that's a great idea. Given the times that we're living in right now, I think we're definitely going to go back with LACC and our internal educational folks or PAO's office to see what options are available.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Hey, Dan, who did you say initiated the Recycle University?
It was actually it was our internal team, Michelle Mikesell, Elaine Stern from the PAO's office, talking with our RSPs, and it was a collaborative effort. What was great was that each RSP kind of worked and said, okay, I'm gonna tackle this one, and so one tackled restaurants. So it really was a collaborative effort, and some great videos. We're limited right now because those videos are only in English. So I think we do have a ways to go still on tackling the bilingual aspect of it. Multilingual, actually.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, that's helpful. I was about to say that you got it. And I know I got a commissioner on here who will ask about that. Speaking of, Commissioner Closa.
Thanks, President Good. I had a nice long briefing with Mr. Myers here and the team, so I got to ask them probably like 200 questions about this already. But I did want to thank them for their work on this and being open to suggestions about some of the things that I wanted to see out of this program, because I think it's been mentioned, it's really rare for us to have a budget for outreach and education. And so now that we have it, we want to really stretch these dollars to make it the best program that we can. Mostly too, right now during COVID-19, we know that there's been a shift in where people work. Right, we know more people are working from home than they are from office buildings, so the need to learn these best practices about recycling are really important because we're kind of changing LACN operations just by where we're spending most of our time. And so I think that there's a really huge opportunity here to do more on the language access front. And I know Mr. Myers and team will do so in the materials that they'll be putting forth and that will come out of the recycler portion of this item that we're discussing today. I think one of the things too, and I'm not really asking Mr. Myers any questions, but more just kind of like summarizing some of the points that I made during the briefing that I received. Two was also including other partners. You know, I think LACC is a great partner in this case, and they're one that has a lot of expertise. But this is a citywide program, and so I think us encouraging them to work with other partners. There's a lot of subject matter experts and nonprofits around recycling that could also be utilized for this type of outreach and education is something that I also highly encourage. There's, I think, plenty of work to go around in this regard. I think some of the follow-up questions that I had for you, Mr. Myers, and Mr. Zermenio, I'm not sure if you guys saw our last communication, but I know it's not listed specifically in here. It's not specifically listed in your scope of work, but are you actually going to like codify our language access expectations in the scope of work to LACC or to to other partners? Or is that just like an expectation that we're gonna share?
So, Commissioner, what we can definitely go back in. I think there's still the opportunity to codify the expectations of multiple languages in our outreach material. Typically, when we work with outreach, we typically supply outreach and education material, the format and the language for the partners to use. So, I mean, I have gone back to just verify where we're at with it. You know, we still have a ways to go. Nine of our outreach and education elements specific to recycling and Recycla have already been translated into 12 additional languages in addition to English. I think we still have a handful to go to complete that translation. And then what we would do is work with LACC as our outreach partner and make sure they have access to all of that outreach material. So they often know in different areas of the city they should be able to anticipate some of the languages that they would be encountered as they do their canvassing efforts. So we'll definitely work with, and we'll definitely make sure in the scope of work that it's adjusted to ensure that multilingual approach to the outreach.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely an opportunity here, given the budget for the for LACC to take on some of the work. I know in past like outreach activities that you and I have been engaged in, either I've taken the role of,
Yep.
of being kind of like translator, and or sometimes people in the community have volunteered to take on that role. But if we have an outreach and education budget, you know, it, I think is a missed opportunity if we're not inserting this into the deliverables that we expect from the people that we're paying, the organizations that we're paying to do this work, right? Because I think oftentimes, like, if we don't specifically list this out, that's what happens. Like, this turns into a volunteer role that falls onto staff, that falls onto community members, and we see it happen time and time again. And so I keep harping on it every time I see something like this come across the board. Because it happened here on our very own board. There was one item that we had discussed think late last year where President or Vice President Garcia and Commissioner Villegas were playing translator on an item because, you know, we weren't prepared for it. And I think that with the increase in recycling that's going to be happening from home, that you're going to do this outreach and education on, you know, I highly encourage LA San to really put the onus of doing that work to our contractor and not put it on your staff. So I know I don't want to belabor it further, but you know, and we've had extensive conversations on this. But I think that's the last point I'll make on this, and that, you know, like I said, it's a substantial budget for this. So I think that a lot of these metrics could really be much more robust, right? I think we can expect more than just outreach to one, predominantly speaking, grocery store, right? For parts of this program, like one is I think we can do more. We can expect more than that, and so that's where I would really like to see some of these changes. And I know I'm not the only one on the board who really cares about the outreach and education piece to this program. So, but we'll be in touch. You know, you know the things I'll bug you about. I don't have any further questions for you today, but thank you both for always be willing to answer questions and make the changes to the scope based off of our feedback. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. Dan, thank you for your presentation, and for the group, also Miguel, for presenting your piece on this. I also had like 300 questions when we met, and we went through a lot of conversation. But Dan, one of the things that and you know, my colleague Commissioner Colosa briefly touched on this, but given that it's so much money for this outreach budget, I feel like we really need to put some target numbers. You know, I haven't seen that, and if you have it, obviously I would, you know, let's develop them if we haven't yet. I just want to see what is our threshold. What are we expecting? How many residents are we expected to touch with this money, and how we're going to touch it? And then also, what are the outcomes? And I think this is one of my you know, my constant conversation on outreach. You know, we got to get to a point that we're doing our services are equaling as change behavior in recycling, because that's what this is meant to do, right? Is to educate constituents on how to recycle and how to use our different you know, our blue bins and so forth, our blue bin. So I just want to get to that point where we have clear descriptions so that our contractor knows what metrics they need to meet. I just don't want to see, we did 8 workshops all throughout the city, and what does that equal to? You know, I want to know how many people did we touch? Were we able to, what did they understand the, you know, the curriculum? Did they implement? You know, ultimately that's what we want, is for a constituent to implement the change behavior or the learned behavior, I guess. So I'll be calling you again, Dan, but I appreciate how welcoming you are. But on this aspect, and making sure we have a really robust program, an outreach program that will really meet the needs that we want here at the city. And then secondly, your grants. I'm very excited about the grants programs that you have going on. Again, I want to discuss that with you a little more thoroughly, just to get a little more of what exactly are we going to expect, you know, the grant receivers to do, and what will we see with this money invested into that. So I think that there's the scope of services, where I'm very happy to see, but I think, you know, the second part, the evaluation part of this, because it is a lot of money going into outreach. So not really a question, more of I guess a second part to our meeting, and, you know, be a third part in when we have another briefing on this. But I just want to make sure that we put our heads around it as we move forward, putting together community outreach, and you're just really getting to a point where, what are our target measurements? What are we really getting out of this? And is LECC, you know, really meeting those target numbers to make sure that the information has been passed along. So those are the conversations, and I just want to start making sure that we start thinking that way, so that we really do see where the money is being invested in.
Well, very good. Thank you, Commissioner. I look forward to working with you on the grants and the other components. Also look forward to, based upon the input, um, enhancing the scope of work for both more details. I agree it's at a higher level right now. It doesn't get down to the person to person touch, as well as the enhancement of the outreach and education components. Sorry, the multilingual outreach and educational components. So I look forward to enhancing that scope of work. It will in its function remain the same.
Right.
So not need to come back to board, but just enhancing to make sure it meets all of our goals.
Right. We just need to, put some screws on, things like that. That's all. But the gist is absolutely. I support the complete concept of it, and I just think I'm having a hard time grasping myself around it, because it is so much money, and usually we're scraping for money for outreach or for community engagement. And this time we have it, so I just want to make sure that we actually invest it in the best way that we can.
Very good. Thank you.
That's all for me, President.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Not a lot to add. I think you've got very clear marching orders, Dan and Miguel. We need to make sure that this is that all the outreach is reflective of the linguistic diversity of the city, and that there are demonstrable and tangible outcomes that are measured over the course of the outreach. I would note for everyone's benefit, and I think folks know this, that we have actually legal obligations around meeting recycling numbers and organics recycling numbers in particular, and so I do think this outreach is critical, and very important for the success not only of Recicla, but just our ability to meet state guidelines and state obligations moving forward. And then obviously the project, the community garden project, in the long term, is going to save the city money by us not continuing to pay that water bill, for lack of a better way to put it. So with that, again, I will motion. I will motion to move this forward with the amendment that it is subject to the mayor's cost containment process. Do I have a second to my motion as amended?
Second.
All right, there we go. We got the zeal coming back. Seconds from Commissioner Colosa and President Pro Tem Davis. Any objections or concerns, Vice President Garcia?
No objections or concerns, just a follow-up meeting with Dan. That's all.
Great. And I suspect Commissioner Colosa will have a follow-up meeting as well. And me too, probably, Dan, as you'd be bored if not, right? All right, hearing no objections, this item is approved and adopted forthwith as amended. Thank you all very much. Dan, Paul, Miguel, y'all have great weekends. All right, colleagues, item number 6 is advisement number 2, report back on graffiti photos. This was originally on the board agenda for Friday, October 30th, 2020. We moved it again to Friday, January 8th. It was also on the agenda on Friday, January 8th, 2021. I'm going to, unless there are staunch objections, I'm going to move to continue this time, in the spirit.
We haven't heard. Sorry.
In the spirit of really making sure that there is adequate time. There's not a time. This is not time sensitive per se, And we want a full fleshing out of really, frankly, a more complex issue than I think any of us really quite realized, but one that matters a lot to literally every corner of the city. And so I'm gonna go ahead and continue this item to February 26th, 2021. Dr. Campos.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. President. We are requesting for a continuation to Friday, February 26, 2021.
Any concerns or questions with that, colleagues? Okay, great. So we will continue, and we will be back with that on February 26th. That brings us to item number 7, the impetus for a Bob Potter sighting. This is item number 7. All council districts. This is an authority for expenditure for CR&R Inc. Perfect segue from the last item. Bureau of Sanitation and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $2,956,606.81 to encumber funding to pay for the processing cost for the receipt, processing, and anaerobic digestion of organic waste from the City of Los Angeles Curbside Collection Program. Authorize the president or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute this service agreement. Bob, or is James Rosca going to present?
James is going to take the lead on this one. I'm just here for support.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Hi, James. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, President Good, Commissioners Garcia, Davis, and Cloza, City Attorney and Executive Officer, James Roscoe with LA Sanitation and Environment. As you mentioned, President, we are requesting authority for expenditure with CR&R in the amount of approximately $2.956 million for the receipt, processing, and anaerobic digestion of our organic waste. LA San previously contracted with CR&R in August of 2016, and this was to demonstrate and evaluate the anaerobic digestion process they had for both green and food waste. Anaerobic digestion is the process where organic waste is broken down, it produces renewable natural gas and other beneficial byproducts and captures that gas so that it can be reused. The natural gas that they produce is actually used to fuel CR&R's fleet of natural gas collection vehicles that they use to then transport material and collect throughout Southern California. Under the contract, CR&R received and transported the material from our central LA recycling and transfer station, Clark's, here in downtown, and they transported it to their anaerobic digestion facility in Paris out in Riverside. The contract was for 2 years and then was renewed for an additional year in 2018, and it then expired in August of 2019. Following the end of the contract, LA San entered into a letter of agreement with CR&R to cover 2 years of service from the end of the contract in August 25th, 2019, to carry us through the end of 2 fiscal years. So the LOA is through June 30th, 2021 this year. The terms of the LOA included the ability for the city to deliver 20 to 60 tons per day of our commingled organic waste. This is material coming from our residential green bin pilot program, Curb Your Food Waste LA. A number of programs that we have at city facilities, including LAX Food Waste Program, the Homeboy Diner at City Hall, as well as the LA Mall food service establishments. The board previously heard a presentation on this item approving the LOA and the authority for expenditure last fiscal year. The item was heard on February 10th, 2020. And so the total amount that we were authorized to encumber was $4 million across the 2 years. Last fiscal year, we spent $1,043,393.19. And so for this fiscal year, we're essentially encumbering the difference on that $4 million, which comes up to approximately $2.96 million. And with that, I will take any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, James. Vice President Garcia?
This is an FEE. I'm sorry that I
Which item?
Yeah, this is authority for expenditure, item number 7.
Right. Is the FEE for a total of the 2.9 or is a portion of that? I'm sorry, and I'm sure you probably said that. Where are you?
Yes, so it's for the 2.9. The total approved on the entire letter of agreement, which spanned 2 years, was $4 million. We spent a little over 1 million in the first fiscal year, so we're just requesting the remainder of the budget for this fiscal
Understood.
year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your report.
President Pro Tem Davis.
Okay, so I am trying to make some clarity here in terms of the scope of work. You mentioned that Homeboys was a part of the work that we do in this motion. Is that correct? Under food securities?
Yes, that's correct. So
specifically, what is? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. So prior to COVID, we had established a number of programs to collect food waste from city facilities. So Homeboy Diner back in, I believe, October of 2017 or 2018, we established a program to set up a green bin in the back of their house. So as they're doing food preparation, food scraps, they could place it in that bin, and then the city's city facility recycling program, or CFRP crew, who does the collection of recyclables at various city departments, they would collect that material and then transport it to Clark's. We also had a bin available in City Hall in the eating area adjacent to Homeboy, where City Hall staff or any people visiting the facility could place leftover food scraps from their lunch in that bin, which would also get collected for processing.
And where do we process this food? This is organic waste, right? Is that what that is?
Yes, that's correct. So the material gets consolidated with green waste from our residential program at the transfer station in downtown, and then it's collected by the vendor and brought out to their anaerobic digestion facility in Paris, California, out in Riverside County.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Closer.
Thank you, President Good, and thanks for the presentation, Mr. Rosca. So for this $2.9 million, we're encumbering this money for services that we expect to use this coming fiscal year. Is that correct, or are we paying for services that we've already used?
So this is for the current fiscal year. So yes, we have already utilized some of the services, and the agreement is retroactive to July, the beginning of the fiscal year. So we have already spent down some of the funds.
How much of these funds have we spent down?
From July to November, we've only spent about $600,000 of the 2.9, and we don't anticipate to utilize the full 2.96 million.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is given that there's been a lot of shifts to where, people may be depositing, their organic waste, since people aren't at work, they aren't at City Hall, where some of these locations are that you mentioned for collection sites. I was just wanting to hear an update from you about what the expected changes to this program are, and if we are making any changes to the collection sites, given that people are dispersed now, mostly back at home.
Yes, so with COVID, we did see changes in the program. So specifically for the city facilities that were involved, LAX, Homeboy, as well as the LA Mall have stopped the collection just due to changes in the operation, as well as decreased participation at those locations, or closures of certain sites. So for example, at LAX, a number of the airline lounges were participating, but have since had to stop operation, in consideration of COVID. A majority of the material that we do collect was coming from the curbside pilot program, Curb Your Food Waste. That made up a majority of the material that we collected, and we have still continued to collect that commingled food waste from the houses that are participating in that pilot.
Okay, and that's still currently the only part of this program that's still continuing, right? It's just the curbside pilot?
Yes, and the quantity of material we were collecting from the curbside pilot did make up the majority of the tonnage we were collecting. When we originally did the letter of agreement, we budgeted for a higher total cost in anticipation of expanding some of these programs, or at LAX expanding to additional locations. But with COVID, we did see the kind of stop in total tonnage that we collected, which accounted for the smaller amount that we've spent so far to date.
I see. And are we planning to add different collection sites for this to actually utilize this funding that we're encumbering here. We've only spent 600,000. That's not very much considering we're, only have a few months left of this fiscal year left.
Yeah, from my understanding, I don't believe we're looking to expand to any additional sites, just in consideration of COVID and changes in terms of operation. A lot of city folks, are working telecommute or remote, so we haven't been able to identify any additional capacity to bring on to this total funding to be able to utilize.
Okay. And then I guess just the last question for me is, what will happen to this funding if we don't utilize the entire 2.9 million?
It will just return to the budget. So if the funding is not utilized, it comes from our solid waste resource revenue fund, which is the funding we collect from the residents as part of their monthly collection. If the funds are unused, they'll just return to the fund to be able to be used for other processing and tip fees, for example, blue bin or black bin services.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Look forward to hopefully seeing a ramp up of this once things look better with COVID. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Colosa. Right. So I was also just sort of working on that math, but James, you did a nice job there. So, I mean, the very nature of an AFE is the authority, not the expenditure. The authority to expend and encumber in the event, but it doesn't look at all like we're going to end up spending this 2.9.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Again, this will be subject to the cost containment process, as I'm sure you guys know. But I am certainly prepared to move this forward. I will motion with the amendment that this is subject to the mayor's cost containment process. Do I have a second to my motion?
Second.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Any objections or concerns, Commissioner Colosa or Vice President Garcia?
None for me.
None for me either.
All right. Hearing no objections, this AFE is adopted as amended forthwith. Thank you very much, James. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much. You all have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you all very much. Nice work, James.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, let's move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is in CD13, also a AFE from sanitation. Everybody okay? What did I hear? I heard something. Okay. Bless you, or whatever happened. So, item 8, AFE, John C. Rasmussen, DBA, The Pond Company. Bureau of Sanitation and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $99,000 to encumber funds to hire a qualified vendor to provide vital upkeep and maintenance of Echo Park Lake. Scope of work to include, but not limited to, collection, disposal, and cleanup of giant apple snails and eggs, removal and disposal of unwanted floating and submerged vegetation such as algae, lakeweed, and pondweed, cleanup and disposal of floating trash and debris fallen or thrown into the lake, weekly upkeep frequency, or as directed by Bureau of Sanitation, authorize the president or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute this service agreement. Who's here to present on this?
Mr. President, I have Mercedes Gray scheduled to present this item. Not sure if it's Honor Hayball, who's on the line. Honor, this is Fernando. Are you presenting item number 8?
I am not.
Okay, sorry about that. Mr. President, it appears that the presenter from sanitation is not on the line for item 8. We can request to continue this item for 1 week till next Friday. That would put us to January 22nd.
Yeah, let's continue because I would like a presentation on this. I'm sure there's quite a clear explanation, but I'm confused as to why we need to contract for Echo Park Lake cleanup if we just got Measure W funds to do to remove apple snails and Auda's favorite new insects and science projects. So
blue-green algae as well.
that's right. That's exactly right. Colleagues, we'll continue this to next Friday. Dr. Campos, if you can,
I'll notify the Bureau.
Yeah, what happened there? That would be great, because obviously, we don't want that happening very often. In fact, at all. Okay. Thank y'all. That'll take us to item number 9. Item number 9. I think Nasser's here for us for that.
Mr. President, item number 9 is an administrative item.
Oh, yeah.
Requesting specifications to approve a bid, invitation for bids.
So this is in CD14. This is specifications submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids. Project in CD14. This is the 7th Street Streetscape Improvements Package number 1, work order number E1908262. Estimated cost of project $6,682,770. Receipt of bids will happen on March 2nd, 2021. Seems like a year from now. But this is, I'm sure you all read the report. This really looks like a very exciting project. So do folks have questions, colleagues, or we're ready to take this to a vote?
Yeah, no
Okay.
objections, no question.
All right. Do I have a motion to move these bids, or to open this up, or to authorize the invitation of bids?
I'll move.
Thank you, Bosa. Seconded by President Pro Tem Davis. Objections or concerns or epiphanies, Vice President Garcia?
None of that. Thank you.
Blue-green algae?
Yeah, that was an epiphany.
All right. Hearing no objections, the invitation of bids is approved forthwith, Dr. Campos.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to the final item on our agenda. I believe we have public comment on this item, Dr. Campos. Is that correct?
That is correct. Mr. Tom Williams is on the line for item number 10. Same commentaries received through Google Doc as well.
Okay. Good afternoon,
Would
Dr.
you like to read? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, so is Dr. Williams here, or
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I was just saying good afternoon, Dr. Williams.
Great. Caller ending in 682, caller ending in 682. The Board of Public Works is now considering the oral report, status update on major upcoming street improvement projects from the Bureau of Street Services. Dr. Williams, if you can please press *6 at this time to unmute. You'll be given 2 minutes to speak on this item. Great. Go ahead. You'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, the basics. I've already submitted comments and a request for a Public Records Act. The basic element is giving things to the city council offices do not get them to the neighborhood councils. And we've had this problem in many times for LA 32 neighborhood council, where I'm at. But also I've heard from many others that they used to not get notified when street trees were going to be removed. Now they are sometimes. So we're quite concerned about when graffiti is being removed. We'd like to know who the hell's doing it and when it's being done, why it's being done, and if it's complete. Because I do my own graffiti removal on all fire hydrants because I got supplied a long time ago with DWP's fire hydrant paint. So I do those on my spare time, but we don't get notifications from either Public Works or from the council offices as to what's going on in our areas. So I'd highly recommend that it be transmitted to at least the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and or directly to the pertinent neighborhood councils. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. All right. Item number 10 is a status update on major upcoming street improvement projects. Um, excuse me. I believe Orlando Maxwell is here to present.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Maxwell, uh, one of your colleagues really dazzled us with singing once, and you did you've done probably the only thing that puts you in even better stead than your singing colleague, which is that you showed up here from a Dallas Cowboys man cave, which for those who don't know, let's just say it gets you extra points with the president here. So welcome, sir.
Thank you. And good afternoon, President Good, Commissioners, Bureau Representatives, and Executive Secretary. This information is being provided to keep the public informed on the upcoming resurfacing projects and to minimize the impact on the community, as well as delays to the commuters. Streets LA would like to provide you with an update on all major upcoming street improvement projects. There are no major street projects scheduled in the Metro resurfacing region during the week of 1/17/21 through 1/23/21. However, we will provide an update on our 2021 pavement preservation program. During the week of 1/17/21 through 1/23/21, the Metro region will complete 12 projects for a total of 6.23 lane miles. The major street projects scheduled in our Valley resurfacing regions for the week of 1/17/21 through 1/23/21 are on Thursday, January 14th, 21 through Thursday, January 21st of 21 from 6:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. We will cold mill and pave Ventura Boulevard, Corbin Avenue to Winnetka Avenue in CD3, and that will be Woodland Hills Warner Center Area Neighborhood Council, part of our pavement preservation program. On Friday, January 22nd, from 6:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., we will cold mill and pave Luis Avenue from Rinaldi Street to 420 feet south of Rinaldi Street in CD12, and that's Granada Hills North Area Neighborhood Council, and that's part of our pavement preservation program too. Additionally, we will provide an update on our 2021 pavement program. During the week of 1/17/21 through 1/23/21, the Valley region will complete 4 projects for a total of 5.06 lane miles. The press releases were broadcasted and notifications have been issued. Streets LA communicated with DOT for traffic control needs, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Cowboy Maxwell. Do I have any questions from my colleagues? Vice President Garcia?
None from me. Orlando, I think, did you do that on purpose? You knew President Good was from Texas, right?
I had a good feeling.
Well, you're definitely his favorite now.
Thank you.
Orlando, if I cut this wrist right now, the whole screen would fill with little blue stars.
That would be me too.
Thank you for your report, Orlando.
Okay, you have a great weekend.
Thank you. Any questions, President Pro Tem Davis?
None for me. Thank you. Great report.
Commissioner Closa?
I don't have any questions, but I just have a quick comment. Thank you, Mr. Maxwell, for your report. I know Dr. Williams was talking about graffiti removal. So it's not in relation to your item, but I remember this came up last week too. I think it was also from Dr. Williams. And I think it might maybe just help by making like a quick update to the template that you all use. And I think this is really great for just public information sharing, to just actually give the link to the website that you all have in your template. I think that might help some of the consistent feedback sometimes that we get about like, hey, where's the schedule? I didn't get notified. This was in my neighborhood council. And you're all that hard work to put that information together on your website, and I look at it frequently. So it might just help by just kind of reiterating that on the template that you have that's attached onto our board report, onto the board agenda packets, so that the general public can really use that as a resource to see the work that you all do with your program, because I know you guys put so much time and effort into it. But thank you, and thank you for making President Good's weekend by being in your cowboy man cave there. So appreciate you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you. That's a great idea, and I will work on that as soon as I get back to work Tuesday.
Thank you, Orlando. And if I could just add to that, if it'd be great, Orlando, if you don't mind, because we have heard that feedback pretty regularly. Also, maybe checking in with Commissioner Villegas at your convenience. She's the liaison with Streets LA, as you know, and about outreach to done. Just how to do that in a sort of systemic way would be great, I think.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you so much. Right. And I'm tempted to get the boss in my house, my wife, to look at this, so I can get an excuse to do some of that stuff in my garage. So, or room. All right. Hey, thank you so much, and you have a great weekend, Orlando. Okay.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, Dr. Campos, does that clear the decks?
Yes, it does.
All right. So, colleagues, I want to, I don't know if everyone's aware, I want to, actually want to adjourn. Well, we don't get to go to the office very often anymore. We will. We look forward to it and are obviously anxious to do so. Dr. Davis is there today. Dr. Campos is there today. But I have no doubt you all will remember a gentleman named Roberto Colmenares. He was always one of the terrific city workers who would be at the front kiosk whenever we enter the Main Street entrance at the garage. He passed away this week, and he was always generous with a smile, always incredibly kind, always with a wave. And I just wanted to, I don't really know too much, but I wanted to adjourn in his honor. I'd like for us to officially adjourn in the honor of Roberto Colmenares, and wish him and his family love and hope and faith. All right. So with that, thank you all very much. Have a safe and restful and peaceful long weekend, and we'll see you all next week. This meeting is officially here adjourned.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, we will reconvene in 10 minutes, 3:44 in the PM for a management meeting. Okay? Thank you all. Bye, Nasser.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all. Thank you.
See you, buddy.